We are here today to talk to you about the 2024 documentary on the life and music of Luther Vandross, Luther Never Too Much, and the heartbreaking story of his weight issues throughout the years.
I'm Heit.
And I'm Cheri.
And you've discovered Axiom Amnesia.
We want to thank all of the supporters who helped to make this video possible. If you want your name to appear alongside these contributors, make a one-time donation via Cash App, or you can head on over to patreon.com/axiomamnesia to enjoy all of the benefits of becoming a monthly subscriber.
You still have prejudices based on the look and the appearance of what it is, not the talent.
This was the first time that they brought up, weight and stuff, talking about how, you didn't know you had a problem, or like how we always talk about your looks.
If you're too black or you're too fat, you got a problem.
And how far you're going to go in entertainment. And Luther was more on the plus size, on the plus side of things.
He was a heavier guy.
Yeah.
And also being black, right? The effect of that.
Black and heavy.
Prejudice based on look, not the talent. You better than everybody else, but you don't have the look that they're looking for. And I think that affected so many folks, period, but especially black people, where they didn't want the face of the talent to, number one, be black, but they certainly didn't want them to be black and heavy.
Luther Vandross, a big Kentucky Fried Chicken eating mother.
So they kind of brought up Big Luther, Small Luther, not in those terms.
Yeah, but Luther, we got to see his sense of humor, because it starts out with, I think it was Eddie Murphy Delirious, where he's talking about Luther being a big old Kentucky Fried Chicken fat dude, right?
Everybody was saying, "Oh, did you hear what Eddie Murphy said?" I said, "Yeah, I love it. I think it's great."
And making a joke about him. And then Luther, he does bring up the KFC or Kentucky Fried Chicken thing on stage, and he makes fun of himself. So basically what happens is Luther knows that Eddie Murphy is in his audience one night after he has made this joke about him in his stand-up, and Luther decides that he's going to bring out this big bucket of chicken on the stage and, joke at himself about the joke that was made about him. But I think that we got a chance to see just like what type of sense of humor and Luther was, silly and funny and everything.
See, we do it right for you, yeah.
But that still had to hurt, even though he said, it's just part of the game and you have to play the game. That has to hurt because he's wearing a part of his dysfunction, if you will, on his sleeve, right? If you are a person who is overweight, has emotional eating, has a weight problem, like that's what people see on the outside. Somebody else could be an alcoholic, a drug addict, or anything else, and you don't know that when you first look at them. But when you look at a person who is overweight, then assumptions are made and stuff like that. And his weight and looks also did hold Luther back in some ways early on. So of course, if he's in the public eye, he's going to have the pressure to try to slim down, to be smaller, to be what he even idolized as far as the perfect look for himself, right? And this was just a hard thing. And, he says that he was an emotional eater. If something wasn't right, then he was going to start eating. And he ate when, when the music wasn't right, when this wasn't right, and when that wasn't right. But he did actually lose 125, 126 pounds. At multiple times throughout his life, we saw him. And this is where the whole fat Luther, skinny Luther thing, big Luther, small Luther, whatever, comes from. And I don't know, it just breaks my heart in a way, that this was his experience. And, as somebody else who's kind of had a weight problem, I can identify with what that must have felt like. And I'm not even on any stage like he was. And then we also see Oprah in those clips too, who had a similar sort of experience.
And they weren't as big as people are today commonly, right? So even those talks, like if you look back to him, you're like, dang, he wasn't even that big. You know what I'm saying? But because, just the way things change. But I just know recently there's this guy named Dave Bluntz, right? And he is the guy who you seen who was sitting on a couch on stage with an oxygen tank.
Oh, yeah.
Right. And, people are just like worried because I haven't heard of him until then. So I don't know if it was like a sudden gain in weight or whatever, but it was concerning when you see it. And I think that's like a totally different thing than what we saw with, Luther Vandross.
Yeah.
Though. And at the same time, there still are people joking when it seems much more critical with this guy, Dave Blunt's nowadays.
Mm-hmm.
He said, food has never let me down. And I said, yes, it has.
Can I just say that this woman was getting on my nerves during this because I feel like she's coming from a place of not understanding the struggle and the battle. And then it's very condescending, like earlier how she was saying, oh, I just told him when you ready, do it. If it was that simple, then you wouldn't have that
That's why
many
he's
people
doing
with
it.
weight problems. And you're sitting up here
It's
looking,
like he was either eating or dieting. Is what she said.
Yes.
Like, wait, what?
And that should
That's
tell you.
telling you that, it's something that he's trying to do. Ain't no just wait until some other time to do something.
And he says, food has never let me down. And then you're on your high horse. Yes, it has. Well, clearly there's something going on there that's more. And you're sitting here in retrospect talking about this man after he is dead from essentially things related to his obesity and unhealthiness of his body. Okay. And this is like and I don't mean to be so judgmental, but when I know I'm sensitive about this, but that bothered me because people like this bother me. If you don't really know enough about it, you need to just shut on up. And in this case, you're sitting here and you don't even realize how you come off. But some other people said some stuff in Luther's life too that are coming up, and we will have to discuss them in more detail.
So the thing is, they don't get into the actual accident or the crash, but you can find old articles about it where they say he was speeding and he lost control, and the guy Lawrence had a studio somewhere, and that's basically where they were heading. Mm-hmm. Lawrence is the one who died.
Right. And then, him being,
and then he got
going
charged
through a trial.
And all that.
And then I think he also had a civil suit by the family against him. And I think he did settle it and stuff. So, I mean, this is a hard time. And we know with celebrities that when things happen to them, their fault or not, there are heavy consequences, maybe even more so than for a regular person, heavy financial consequences and perhaps consequences to their careers.
Woman comes up to me and she says, "You gonna put it all back on just like Luther did."
The thing is, so when Oprah brought this up, talking about they say you're gonna gain it all back like Luther did.
Such a mean thing to say.
The audience started laughing.
Mm-hmm. Because even like in general, they don't get it.
Anyone without the problem may or may not understand.
And I think when it's being presented by two people who are in the public eye that have been like Oprah has been very vulnerable about her weight issues. And even way back then when she revealed this grand weight loss.
It's not, the food is incidental in it. It is more about your emotional state.
And then like people just laughed at it. And that includes the people with weight issues themselves in the audience, right? Folks just laughing at it. It just,
A lot of people make a big deal out of your weight. Does it bother you?
Luther was just never going to be able to please everybody with everything. And they were always going to talk about his weight.
Yeah, it's bothersome right now that you're asking me. That's a personal struggle.
For first and foremost, we can't, hey, I got a new album. Let me talk about how fat you are or are not right now in this moment. Yeah. And imagine what that felt like.
I'm saying, but what if I talk about it and gain any of it back? Then I have to carry that type of paranoia.
And for those of you who may not understand how that would feel, okay, well, imagine if when you go in for the interview and they talk to you about how you cheated on your wife and she left you, or when they talk about how you drink too much and then you were drunk and you got arrested, or they talk about other stuff, or they talk about how that baby you raising ain't really yours, or they talk about all your baby mamas that's out there, or they talk about you just got an Oscar, but they talking about how your brother is in jail, or you know what I'm saying? Yeah. Like, imagine that and not wanting to talk about that, but every time this man went up before the cameras, it was always something that was very personal.
Yeah. So like the thing too, so with the editing, so you have the woman, I think her name is Robin, right? Who was talking about the conversation she had with them. So part of it could be, so you remember the part where she was talking about, he's either dieting or eating, blah, blah, right? And I said whatever thing she had said to him that sounded kind of rude or wrong. It could have all been in the same segment where she's like, but then he told me no, this is a problem I struggle with.
probably
You know what I'm
was.
saying? But the way they just edited, then you kind of looking sideways at the interviewee. Like, wait, why is you talking like this? You
Good
don't
point.
understand. And she could have just been explaining how she got to the point of understanding and empathizing.
That's a good point. And if that's the way it went down, Robin, I'm sorry. But the way they cut you and edited you in this, it did not shed you. It made you seem a little clueless,
Yeah.
you know.
And it was so sad that there was such a fixation about his weight.
One thing I don't get is why they split up the weight part into these different parts.
Maybe because in this part, they got to segue into his ultimate demise. They talked about it earlier, and he lost the weight and he gained, and he lost it, you know. But they got to talk about how he gets to the point of the problems that he ran into toward the end of
with
his
Jay
life.
Records, and Clive.
As fans, we've been on set, whatever weight you are, we don't care. We just love you.
Let me also say that, you know, for the people who maybe don't understand what Luther was going through, he was a stress eater. So when he was unhappy, he would eat, and it might be out of control.
When Luther was under stress is when he would eat.
Probably was also overeating, even when he was happy. But different people have different relationships with the food. You know, some people eat most when they're happy. You know, I think about myself, like I'm the type of person that when stress is really bad, I don't eat. So, you know, I feel like I can look back on my life and feel like, hey, I've been pretty much mostly happy, right? But when I'm happy, like I want to eat more. I want to, you know, but when I am like under a tremendous amount of stress or things are going wrong, that's when I'm not eating. You know, that's when I stop. And so different people have just different things, but even still, that's a terrible relationship to have with food and whatever problems that you have. And when you try to be transparent about that, and there are people who might not completely understand that. And I've talked about this before because I say how people who maybe have a problem, let's just say with alcohol, because that's just a common issue that a lot of people have. It's not something I understand. I cannot understand that, and I recognize that. So this is why I'm not going to say to a person who's an alcoholic, well, why don't you just, you know what I mean? Because my position of a lack of understanding is not helpful to that person. Trying to make my little suggestions from over here, you know?
Like people like to do though. Why don't you just have you even thought about this at all besides just jumping in saying something?
And do you think that I wouldn't have thought about it, right? Do you think a person who isn't
you never thought about it,
suffering-
right? Yeah, you never thought about it, but you think that I ain't think about something?
Shut up. You know, I mean, and this is the part, and I mean, you know, people mean well and whatever, but oftentimes there's judgment that comes with it,
I like big curl ain't quite right Luther. That's the one I like.
right?
Yeah.
There's judgment.
Why don't you just not eat as much?
You got to
Like,
exercise
what?
the self-control. Okay. Tell that to the alcoholic.
You know, black people, you can't lose no weight, but well, you okay? You sick?
But see, how is it that an alcoholic can exercise self-control maybe with regard to their diet of food, but not the alcohol?
Yeah.
You know, it just depends. Stop sleeping with all them men or women.
Bruh.
You know what I'm saying?
Stop smoking weed. Oh, wait.
Are we going to talk about it?
I could stop anytime.
It don't affect me. Oh, you think it doesn't? Because I'm totally sober and I see you. Hello. But you think it doesn't.
Yeah,
All
so,
right.
yeah, there's just...
But I say that to just prove the point of he was dealing with a thing. And even the people who were the closest to him, who I would say are like his assistant at this point in his life, the people who worked with him closely, his friends, the background singers, they loved him. We were always concerned.
We worried about him.
But there's part of me, and this might just be totally wrong, but I'm going to say it. There's part of me that's like, you're concerned because Luther also is the cash cow. If he can't perform, you can't perform. If he can't, that's messing with your money too, right? You know, and there's a part of you, even though I'm sure that you loved him and everything, that is like, dang, what am I going to do? Because, you know, they don't make the kind of money that the Luther makes. They're still trying to make their living in their life. But, you know, come on. And then it just feels like judgment the way some of these friends are talking about him, even though I know that they loved him. I'm not saying they didn't. I did, you know.
He said, this is going to be my career song.
So we got to talk about Dance with My Father. This song, he says that he wants to be his, what was the word he used? Basically the song he's remembered for. You know,
Yeah.
the legacy
Career
song,
defining song.
his
or whatever, yeah.
career song. And it's a beautiful and an amazing song. But y'all, I have to share with you, at this point in the documentary, when they started playing this song, I had to take me a break. I had to get up and leave the room. Because again, like before, if I was on the verge of tears when he was talking about love, this part right here touched me so much because I remember when this song came out. And at this point, when this song came, I was like, it's a beautiful song. And, you know, I was moved. But when my dad passed away in 2019. And this is a song that I have not been able to listen to from beginning to end since then. And when I heard that, I was just like, ooh, I can't even take it. And I said, well, maybe this is his career defining song.
I don't think so. See, I don't think so. I think Here and Now is the song, right? I just think that. But I think this is one of those songs that's just great. But so you had kind of around that time and like the few years around that, what I think of is songs that were released around the time people died. Right. And I kind of did a video on something similar to this, right? Where you have like with Big Pun, he's like, oh, I just lost however many pounds. I'm trying to live. Right. And the song It's So Hard that came out after he died. Right. You had Soul Heaven with, I believe, Johnny Taylor. Right. You had the I Ain't Mad at You video and the song Thug's Mansion from Tupac. You know what I'm saying? And it's one of those things, this very emotional song that's kind of like, I guess, nostalgic, right?
It gets you in your feelings.
Right. And he's in his feelings about his
it.
father. And then next thing you know, he's dead. Like, that's one of those songs that holds a different sort of emotion because of the proximity to the person's death, right?
He is touching on the love themes, not just romantic love themes, but love of your family, love of the people who you just care about, period. And what life really means, right? The fact that it's temporary, that these moments, these things, when we think back, when the nostalgia, that's why it feels so good, but it hurts so much too.
Yeah.
And
so that's what they missed out of this documentary, though. You had, when he went to J Records, he had that song, and he also had Take You Out. Can I take? His career was reinvigorated, right?
Yeah.
And which allows for this song to, you know, have the the popularity that it had because of that album before this album.
And I knew for sure I was loved.
So this is probably my favorite Luther Vandross song, though, of all of them.
If I could, when he played it, I was in awe.
You know, it would be my favorite, but it hurts too much. Like, I can't listen to this song.
And not long after that, he had a stroke.
Clearly, even though he survived this massive stroke, it's the writing on the wall that this is the last chapter, right?
Yeah.
You don't know how much time you have left, but he's seriously ill and he knows that things are never going to be like they were before.
We went into the room where his body was.
And I just want to come back and say one more time, you know, regarding Robin.
It's Robin Clark.
We saw our friend.
I do think that it is the editing of this particular film, and I don't think that the order that the clips are presented in may be representative of what she was saying or the totality of what she was saying at any time, such that it makes her look like she might be being insensitive when she's really not, or she's explaining a longer story that they have chopped up, and it points to something that is not what she intended when she said it. So, you know, I just
for the sake of having a quote better story for the documentary, right?
Right.
Because that is storytelling in documentary form is choosing what clips and stuff you're gonna put in where.
And I believe that all these people we see in here loved him dearly and never would have wanted to see this end for him. If you enjoyed this snippet from our 3.5-hour watch party on Luther Never Too Much, you can watch the full video for free on the free tier of Axiom Amnesia's Patreon. Stay tuned for the details on how to join. I just wanted to jump in here to encourage you to join our free Patreon tier. Yes, we have premium paid memberships on Patreon and YouTube channel members who get exclusive content, early releases, and other perks, but we are now also offering a free Patreon membership tier where you will get videos that are not offered to the general public on YouTube. For example, we just dropped a 3.5-hour watch party for the new Luther Never Too Much documentary on our free tier, where you get to watch the full movie along with us in our commentary. If you like what you see, you can join one of our paid membership tiers later, or you can just remain as a free member with no strings attached. This free Patreon membership does not give you access to all of the paid exclusive content and early releases that our premium Patreon and YouTube channel members enjoy, but we wanted a way to offer you a better viewing experience without many of the restrictions that we have on this platform. So come on over and join us on Patreon. The link is in the description. It's easy and free to join. You can simply log in with your Google or existing social media accounts and begin enjoying Axiom Amnesia's Patreon.
If you made it this far into this breakdown, go ahead and type "you never thought about it" in the comments so we'll know you're one of the real ones who stick around to the end.
And be sure to check out one of the videos that's on the screen right now.